Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and this one is going to be my first in a really long time, and it's going to be about a topic I'm pretty excited about. After years of juggling around multiple different external SSDs, I finally needed some type of dedicated storage solution. And I'm at a point where I have at least 300 gigabytes of data, which I can't just offload onto the cloud at a cheap rate. So that's why I decided to just have my own storage server. So yeah, let's get right into it. Now, in terms of actually choosing a NAS, there's so many devices out there, but I chose the UGREEN DXP4800 Plus because it's a 4-bay system and it has a decent amount of upgradability for what I want to do into the future. I can go ahead and put in more RAM if I need, and it has one really exciting feature which is going to really help my specific needs, which I'll get into a little bit later in the video. But if you're a beginner, a great system to also consider, which I've just done from my research, has been a lot of the things that Synology offers. You could kind of consider them potentially as like the Apple of NAS devices, but because they are premium, they also try to put their own software limitations on those types of devices. But I'll leave a link in the description about the specific Synology NAS that I was potentially thinking of getting, but purely because this UGREEN NAS has 10 gig Ethernet, that was the main reason why I went with the one that I have. Not only is the thing built like a tank, it also looks really good just about everywhere you throw it in. You can put it next to your main desk setup or your entertainment console, or maybe like some type of dresser or nightstand, and it's just going to really blend in well with whatever environment you put it around. I personally am keeping this right next to my TV and entertainment setup, and I think it does a great job just kind of being out of place there. And because I'm fortunate enough to have an Ethernet jack in my house right next to it, it works right next to my network, and it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I'm gonna also briefly go over the I/O. Obviously you have your 4 storage bays, as well as a SD card slot, a USB 3.2 Type A port, and a USB 3.2 Type C port on the front. Now if you flip it over to the back, you have your 10 gig Ethernet port, which is a big plus for this device, 2 USB 2.0s, 1 USB 3.2, and all of these are Type A ports. I do really wish that they put in more Type C here. And then you also have an HDMI port. So especially for a NAS, this has a lot of ports on it, so if you want to use this device for a multi-purpose thing, you definitely could. UGREEN also hasn't locked down this device in any way for its kernel, so it's very easy to go ahead and dual boot other different operating systems onto it. I don't think I plan to do that for the means of how I use this device, which is purely just for data redundancy, but still, that's something you can do if you want.
Now, storage options.
This is where most people usually make their first mistake, myself included. The type of drive you choose completely changes the network speed you actually need. Let's take a look at 3 types of drives. So we have the traditional hard drives, which are the slowest, but they're really cheap, reliable, and they're also great for bulk storage. Now, these hard drives have a max read-write speed of 150 to 200 megabytes per second. That means even a traditional 1 gigabits per second Ethernet connection or any device that just has a 1 gigabit Ethernet port is going to be more than enough for you to actually saturate the speed of the hard drive. And in today's world, that's mostly every single device, and most older homes are only pre-wired with Cat5 or 1 gigabit per second ports everywhere. So unless you're going to be able to upgrade your entire existing network infrastructure, the hard drive is probably a safe bet for you. Now let's talk about SATA SSDs. SATA SSDs are significantly more expensive, but they're completely quiet, and they allow a much larger increase in speed of about 500 megabytes per second. That means you can transfer about half a gig worth of data in just 1 second. Now, to take advantage of those speeds, you're going to need to have your home or your network at least be equipped with Cat6 cables everywhere, and all of the devices that run in between this network are going to have a gigabit port of at least 5 gigabits per second. In today's world, that is not very common. Most higher end devices, even those, cap out at about 2.5 gigabits per second. Now on the blazing end, we have NVMe SSDs. At a minimum, most of these, even the slower ones, are going to have a read-write speed of at least 2 gigabytes per second or 2000 megabytes per second. And that's where NVMe's really shine, but you can see even if you have a 10 gig Ethernet connection, you're only going to be able to take advantage of half that speed. Now, if you do want to have NVMe SSDs as your primary storage, you're going to need 10 gigabyte switches everywhere, 10 gigabyte per second devices, and even your NAS is going to have to support a 10 gigabytes per second connection. So any break in any of this is where you're going to see a bottleneck and you're going to have slower speeds. So to actually match the 10 gig max supported by the NAS, I did have to make some changes to my network infrastructure. The biggest one, and something most people will have to do, is change their switch. I had a traditional 1 gigabyte per second switch, and that was just not going to do it, so I did find a used switch off of Amazon that gave me 10 gigabits per second as a network transfer speed. Now, the next bottleneck I faced, and thankfully the last one because my home already came pre-wired with Cat 6, was the Ethernet port of my docking station. Now, my docking station is only a 1 gigabit per second port, and I would imagine that most laptops, unless you pay for the premium edition to add in 10 gig Ethernet, most of them are going to have this limitation. So I did have to buy a 10 gig network adapter as well, just to have an Ethernet connection directly to my laptop that was 10 gig. The drives that I actually ended up putting into my NAS were dual 2 terabyte SATA SSDs. For me, I thought this was going to give me exactly what I needed because SSDs are silent and they don't make any noise and they're lightning fast. But after actually putting all my data onto it, I found that I had already exhausted 600 GB of the storage pool. And I wasn't comfortable in shelling out the money to get another SSD for only a 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte extra upgrade. So instead, I traded those 2 terabyte SSDs in for 2 8 terabyte hard drives. And after moving all of that, I realized I had so much more storage potential. And after actually running with these drives, I found that while yes, at times you can hear the hard drives hum, it's really not too much. And they still provide me with a good amount of storage that I need into the future. Now, you might be wondering what the point of me upgrading my network to 10 gig was if I was just going to go ahead and put in normal hard drives in there. And that's a very fair question. The great thing about this NAS and a lot of other offerings by UGREEN at this price point is that in addition to providing upgradable memory, they also let you put in 2 NVMe SSDs in that same compartment. Now, apart from creating those as a dedicated storage pool, you can set them up as a read-write cache. That means anytime you're going to write anything to the anything to the NAS, it's first going to get written to the SSD and then to the hard drive, which also means if you want to do a read of all of that information, you can do it very quick. So that's how you can have a really, really large storage pool, but still take advantage of those 10 gig speeds that's provided by the 10 gig port on the NAS. Now, another thing I would recommend as a fast follower once you have your NAS set up is to make sure that it won't go out or corrupt any data anytime there's a power outage. The whole point of why you would want to have a NAS is so you can keep your data secure, but if the power goes out, you risk losing or corrupting your entire storage pool. So on most NAS devices, you can go ahead and buy either a third-party UPS, which stands for an uninterruptible power supply, and that's going to basically immediately kick in once power is gone over your home power network. Now, UGREEN has one of these for their devices specifically, so that's something that I got. Just by looking at all the specs, I don't expect this to provide infinite amount of power for my NAS for a long period of time, but it's enough to at least tell the NAS to go ahead and shut down in the event of a power outage, and it'll shut down in a safe manner. So later I can just go back and turn it back on. Another thing that I really, really like about the NAS is a lot of the applications that you can then run on top of it. Obviously, you can just use it for the really simple things, which is just for being a dedicated store for all of your information. But another thing that I'm using this NAS particularly for is to offload all of my photos away from Google Photos and iCloud onto this NAS. And most storage or most NAS providers go ahead and give you some type of application suite for you to run a similar thing like Google Photos or the iCloud Photos library natively on your home server. And this works really, really well for me. I also, in the future, want to go ahead and dabble around with creating like some type of media server to stream home movies, but that's something that I can definitely do later down the lane. But I think the box that I chose here is a really solid option because let's say into the future I need to be able to transcode 4K and I do that all over my home network, I can at least upgrade the memory up to, I think it's 64 gigs for this box, and it has a processor, while not the world's most powerful processor, it should be more than capable for handling just that. So yeah, I mean, that pretty much does this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Might post a follow-up video in terms of how the long-term experience for having this box has been, and as well as some of the other things I learned while upgrading my network to be 10 gig. But yeah, I am finally back on YouTube, and I hope to see you guys again shortly. And yeah, like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you guys.